Hello, my fellow Trollopes. We embark upon the third of the Palliser novels by Anthony Trollope, Lady Eustace's Diamonds. Lady Eustace, let me get the title right. The Eustace Diamonds. We're not talking about Lady Eustace. This is about the diamonds that kind of everybody swirls about in this book. This is I believe it's the third of the read-alongs of Trollope, hosted by Steve Donoghue. I am the Johnny-come-lately. I started with Phineas Finn, and am now going on to the Eustace Diamonds with my fearless, handsome 29-year-old leader. Is 29 or 28? Oh, faux pas there. In Victorian society, I would now be shunned. So yes, 1872 novel. It is all centers around, well, at the moment, these diamonds. Lizzie Eustace, she's going to be Lady Eustace for the novel. She's née Greystock. Marries Florian Eustace. Basically, she's... Oh my God, the beginning of this book is just an acid portrait of Lizzie Eustace, who, to my mind, if it was written in the 1950s, would be the femme fatale of a noir novel. She basically ensnares him. She's described as basically a liar and an actress. She feigns everything. She pretends all emotions, is basically grasping, greedy, total 50s femme fatale sort of thing. She ensnares Florian Eustace. Florian, am I supposed to get kind of a coin thing? Like, basically, he's just, he's for the coin. She ensnares him, even though actually probably because she knows he's going to die. He dies conveniently, having presented her with the Eustace diamonds. Now, he hasn't, she lies and says, oh, he gave them to me forever and ever. And so I get to keep them. And it's like £10,000, which you have to think in 1872 money is a ton of money. And understandably, the family wants them back. And indeed, the lawyer, Mr. Camperdown, is pursuing her, and she's not answering his letters. And unfortunately, like a lot of femme fatales of the 50s, she's a liar and she's cunning, but she's not so smart outside of her kind of realm of seduction and feigning emotions. She does not have any of the legal things and doesn't realize that basically she doesn't have a leg to stand on. However, she has her own shamelessness, I would say, to stand upon. Now, in opposition, because at the very beginning of this book, we get a portrait of Lizzie, acid portrait of, this is like, wow, this is Mean Girl time of Trollope talking about Lizzie Eustace. And then we get Lucy Morris, who we're quickly told at the beginning, this isn't going to be the heroine of the book either, but maybe let's counterbalance stuff with this shining orphan, recently orphaned governess, impoverished, but she's the treasure of the Fawn household, where she's a governess, where she's basically, it's like slave labor. It's one of these things of like, oh, we treat her just like a daughter. An unwed daughter that you also, you don't, particularly the mother doesn't give much information to, and infantilizes regardless of what their age are. The only way they're escaping is through marriage as well. And it's not like Mrs. Swan is a mean woman, but you can definitely see governess. I think of Jane Austen, and it's like, wow, governess was one of these, like, it's the claw up of being trying to like eke some existence and being completely dependent because you're not a legal person at this time in Victorian society. There's like, basically property and stuff like that. If you don't have a man, you're not, hopefully widowed, like some other women in the book, you don't get that. Now, so Lizzie, of course, she is a widow now, and she's hotly pursued because she didn't have money of her own, but she inherited a ton of money from Florian Eustace. It turns out that, she's got the property, and she's given out that, she gets that property in perpetuity. However, no, it's not in perpetuity. Now, and the next character is the man who is torn between these two women, the kind of the angelic, very good. Like, Anthony Trollope writes good characters well. Like, she's a good character in a way that doesn't make you want to throttle her, is Frank Greystock, who is also not a rich man, but enough that he's like a barrister, and he's managed to get into Parliament as a conservative member. And he's got that conundrum of a poor man hanging out in rich circles where, basically with the needs of the time, he's going to need somebody. He's going to need to marry a rich woman, and indeed, Mrs. Fawn, who is the employer of Lucy Morris, says, don't get your hopes up, honey. He has to marry someone who's rich. He's not gonna marry you. Don't embarrass yourself, which I'm sure has many Victorian connotations of ruin yourself and stuff like that by throwing yourself at Frank Greystock. But Frank, I guess to his credit, Frank is an interesting. If there's a character in here that I'm finding more is kind of more interesting, because Lucy is very pure. Lizzie is definitely kind of greedy, grasping, evil. I mean, I can sort of see why she is the way she is, but it's hard to sympathize for her. Frank is that nice Greystock. He truly deserves his name of that. He's somebody who is torn. He's torn between the two. It's like, I could really use a rich woman to marry, and even though I don't particularly love her, it would be useful, and I could manage her. I'm a guy who's shrewd. It's like gray-eyed, shrewd. Somebody he has kind of the spirit to love Lucy, but he's also got the ambition for politics and things like that. That he could very easily could marry Lizzie, and indeed. He almost does, but gets interrupted by one of the great characters, Lady Lithgow, who out of duty. She's basically described as she's a mean old old bird, but she also knows her duty, and she will do her duty, and she does great good, even though she's actually kind of a venomous creature. It's like very nice. There's a nice mixture there of she'd be super unpleasant to be around, but she's like a solid woman. She's she's a solid woman. Oh, there goes my lighting. She's a solid woman. But she interrupts Frank, who's about to propose to Lady Eustace. Which I would say is like kind of rescuing him from his own trouble. He doesn't come back. Lithgow is there to say, look, you've taken these jewels. The family, your dead husband's family wants it back. Hello, you're bringing shame upon yourself. And Lizzie just freaking hates Lithgow, and you can see that of the moral rectitude of her to the Lizzie Eustace is like basically, well, the world should just conform to what I want and my needs, and I bugger to all any morals and stuff like that. It's totally 50s noir dame here. So yes, that's the three characters. Of course, what happens is Frank kind of wandering off. Lizzie goes, well, what I need is respectability at the moment. So I reach out. I'm going to grab Lord Fawn, the son of Mrs. Fawn, that family, and Lucy is the governess of. And indeed, he is someone I would definitely not root for. Someone Steve promised, there'd be plenty of people characters to want to throttle in this book. I was frustrated with Phineas Finn in the last one. I guess Lord Fawn would be that character. He is somebody who is, he's a dope, and he's not a rich man. He is a high status person but he's not terribly rich, so he needs a rich wife. That's why he's eyeing Lizzie Eustace. And indeed, Lord Fawn is a crossover character from our last book, Phineas Finn, where he wooed Violet Effingham, basically hoping for a rich wife. And boy, that would have been much better for Lord Fawn. But instead, he ends up proposing to Lizzie Eustace, and Lizzie is very quick in publishing this knowledge, because it's sort of it's this half-hearted kind of thing, and I'm not quite sure about those jewels, and like what's happening with your property. Like, he hasn't educated himself at all before ensnaring himself in this woman. And indeed, as the penny starts to drop, he's such a moral coward, he has trouble withdrawing himself from the thing, because as a high status guy without much money, all he's got is his name, and he's terrified that his name is going to get despoiled by any hint of scandal, that would just horribly ruin him. And maybe he's got a point. There's a part of it that's just like, characters around him say, like, he's afraid of Lady Eustace, and it would be a terrible marriage because she would just totally run roughshod over him. And indeed, one of the friends, John Eustace, who was like a brother, I believe, of Florian Eustace, says like, well, Frank, you should marry Lizzie because you've actually kind of got the balls to be able to kind of rein her in and put her in check. And indeed, there's kind of a question throughout this book because Frank Greystock, kind of against his kind of the mind, his heart goes with the thing of he proposes in letter form to Lucy Morris, which I guess in some ways is a barrister. It's like, well, I put it in writing. That's even more important than saying it out loud. But he puts it in writing. I want to marry you, and she accepts. But it's the head and the heart, and it's I think there's a quote in here of the old Quaker quote of don't marry for money, but go where the money is. It's like, don't marry for money, but find a pool of rich people and marry and find somebody in there that you love. Don't marry for the money, but just basically surround yourself propinquity with a lot of rich women, and basically one of them will naturally come to you as a good thing. And I don't know if Lizzie would. This is always the options thing. Is like, really, Lord Fawn, is Lizzie the best you could go with? But there's also the thing of thinking with other parts of the body is Lizzie Eustace, and in the compare and contrast, Lizzie Eustace is very much the beautiful woman, whereas Lucy Morris is very much said as, oh, she's plain, but she has like her personality kind of sparkles a room. And I think a lot of the men in this book are ensnared by Lizzie Eustace's good looks and overlook the fact that, wow, she is not good news. She is bad news. So yeah, it's all that. Oh, and I should speak out about the Marvel crossover in this book. I have to put it in the crassest of movie terms of, all the Marvel movies you have, characters from the other movies come in. Well, this book has a total Marvel movie crossover where you get Lady Glencora, you get Madame Max Goesler and Violet Effingham all having this conversation about what they've generally heard kind of slightly distorted or completely distorted about this whole brouhaha of Lord Fawn trying to get out from under Lizzie Eustace, and Lizzie Eustace holding on to the family heirlooms of the Eustace family, and them talking about it, and them having all their own very particular things of Lady Glencora saying you should marry somebody who's a lord. That's the most important thing. And then Madame Max Goesler, who turned down the Duke of Omnium and saying no, and Violet Effingham saying like, well, it's unsuitable. They've all got their own particular. It's a little slice. It's just this little slice, which I'm sure would confuse somebody who's just coming to it. Like, who are these three women talking? But it's like, no, if you're a true fan, if you're one of the true believers out there, Marvel fans, Trollope fans, you'll and you smile and you grin. So it's quite interesting to see that Marvel was beaten to the punch by Anthony Trollope in the great crossover thing. So I thought that was a fun thing, and perhaps that was a fun thing. But I guess at this point in the book, predictions going forward of chapter 20, it's like Lizzie is completely paranoid about these jewels, that they're going to get taken away from her by somebody. She's got them in a strong box and she's transporting them with her. She won't let them out of her sight. And she's like, oh, is this guy going to betray me and get them off? Or, oh my God, the lawyer's coming says I'm going to do a search warrant. She's like super paranoid. And my thoughts are that we're going to have like a fake robbery so that she can keep them, because the penny's going to finally drop that, legally I'm not going to have a chance. Lord Fawn is doing all he can to withdraw himself from the marriage. I still think there probably could be legal action to try and prevent him from doing it. Frank Greystock is supposed to be her protector, but I think he's a guy who looks for the chance. Like he totally would take advantage if he could find the chance, if he could find the legal stuff. I think he would do that. He's got enough moral grades that he can be like, Lizzie, kind of like, let's get the money and run. Or, well, not run, but if we can do it in kind of as legal a way as possible, I can see him doing it. I also can see him being with someone like Lucy, who is the only character so far, I believe, in this book who is slapped Lizzie down, because Lizzie says like, oh, well, you're a governess for the Eustace family. I'll pay you, I'll bribe you with this brooch with not an inconsiderable amount of money, probably for someone who is poor as Lucy, to spy on the family for me. And Lucy's like, you're just terrible. And there's no way I would ever do that. And, basically shuts her down. And if there's any moment of sort of semi-cheering at this point, it is, oh, that's when, Lucy just puts Lizzie in her place and says, yeah, that's it, we're done, goodbye. And doesn't talk to her anymore. Though she's such a pure person that she hasn't told Frank, oh, she tried to bribe me. You should really watch out for her if you're, legally representing her as a barrister or lawyer. Frank is also her cousin, but that wouldn't preclude them, hooking up. That's, we're in the Victorian age where cousins could get married and have offspring. Anybody who's a product of a cousin out there, I'm sure that's just genetic foul language, and I wish you all the best. I don't know where I'm going there. You told my no, okay. To the first hillbilly inbreds were definitely the upper echelons of the English upper aristocracy and European aristocracy. Let's just put it that way. Where was I going with all this? So yes, it's one of these things of, I think the jewels are probably going to get taken away so that that Lizzie can try and hold on to them. I don't think she'll try and go the legal route. I get the film noir kind of like she's got to hire somebody to try and take them away from her, hide them, and it's all going to go wrong for her. Frank, it's like, would Frank actually be better marrying Lizzie? Would it be better for Lizzie because, she'd have somebody who would take her in hand I don't know. I'm trying to think of like in the very sexist thing. It's like, we've had dudes talking, saying like, well, you're strong enough. You could kind of rein her in. And, it's like, I think Lizzie would I think whoever married Lizzie would be as unhappy as Lizzie is. Lizzie is one of these people who's prototypically just is always grasping, always lying, always trying to fake being proper, well, not being proper, and being completely miserable because of it. We are definitely getting a different side of Victorian society, of the kind of, I think they talk about in the back here of, of its pervasive dishonesty, and you really get that sense of dishonesty, hypocrisy, Victorian hypocrisy. I've heard that a lot. This is definitely a good novel for that. I have to say, comparisons to Phineas Finn, I felt on more sure ground looking at the more political side, the parliamentary side of that novel. I know some people that the politics of Phineas Finn was an impediment, but I actually found that more understandable than like, well, why doesn't Lord Fawn just tell her to buzz off? I don't know my marital stuff. I don't know the moral, social codes. Like, why is he so afraid? Like, what can he do? What's his range of things that he can do? I feel like I'm watching it with a bit of the nets down, not understanding why people are lobbing stuff over, not realizing there's this giant net in the way that they can't do that because they would hit the net of Victorian laws, like marital laws. Like, it's like, are you trying to, it's like, are you trying to, Lizzie at some point says like, as he's trying to back his way out, like, I must kind of withdraw my proposal. It's like, you get the sense that and he says like, are you trying to disgrace me? Are you trying to, I can't remember the exact word, but it's like, there's something in there that it trips. And then I think he's on the hook legally, and there'd be shame in the courts that way. He's got to find a reason to withdraw his proposal because he's accepted. And it's almost like there's a contractual thing. I'm afraid to look in the back of this thing I have to look very gingerly because in the back of Phineas Finn, there was a spoiler for Phineas or Ducks. And, that was sad. So, I will pick my way through carefully, educate myself about that, educate myself about a couple of offside things. Things off to the side. They've talked about an Indian prince who's being treated badly by the British, because I'm sure it will contribute to my enjoyment of the novel, all the little layers and layers, stuff like that. So yes, that's the first 20 chapters of the Eustace Diamonds. See, I got the title right at the end there, and I look forward to maybe getting some more context from the great and grand Steve Donoghue. I'll put a link to his videos down below, and I'll join you for the next hunk. I think we're doing it in 20 chapter hunks. So next week, next 20 chapters of the novel, and we'll go from there. We'll see if a hero or a heroine shows up. Of course, the hero in the last novel was Phineas Finn, who I don't consider the hero at all. So I'm always suspicious with Mr. Trollope and his heroes now because of that. So yes, more videos later.